entire classroom's full of LSAT students.
Oh, wow.
When you walk in, you have to kick them all out.
Sounds like a horrible day.
I've been having a heck of a week, man, getting over this. I got this like bug.
I got my house tinted and then redoing the kitchen. My parents' house and the keys.
Nice.
So I've been busy.
What do you see this is? Ugh. Stop traveling.
Alex, here's your midterm.
Okay.
Chad?
Yep.
Yep. Please. Okay, back. I need to ask. Did you take my textbook the first class?
Yes, I did.
Have you ever gotten one, or are you just using my book?
I'm just using your book.
Well, I'm glad you asked.
Because you said I could have.
I said my intent was until you could get one. But now that we're this far along, obviously that's cool. I don't mean to embarrass you in front of everybody. I thought that was the deal, that it was here, use this until you get one.
Oh, no.
Are you writing in my textbook?
No, I'm not.
Okay, cool. All right, you'll bring it back to me next class?
Oh, sure.
Okay, cool. All right.
Because you mentioned that, you can have it until whenever.
I'm sorry? No, I mean, I just want to have it someday, but I couldn't remember, couldn't remember for sure who took it.
Okay.
Because a couple people said, I don't have a textbook, and I think I hit it out and said, somebody take it,
Okay.
But again, I thought you were going to be getting one, but we're cool.
Extension cord.
Where's one here?
Yeah, but I have like a really short, charger. Alright, that works. Playing Tetris over there.
Like daisy chains. You're not supposed to do that, right? Daisy chain, I would not be able to code. Systems that are out of control.
Where is that?
And it's like all comes together and like people stuff's like hanging in the streets and stuff.
You just kind of do it yourself?
Yeah, it's people just connect it. They just go up there.
Just people know how to connect it? Like, is this just like a...
That's terrible.
That looks like... I don't even know what it is.
It's a system of people where they don't actually know how to enforce any codes or anything like that. That's what happened to me.
Okay, guys, two people aren't gonna show, Laura are coming, and, I'm not gonna wait any longer for Marielle. Midterms, if you can't read my writing, check with me after class. If you don't understand a grade or on any individual one, let's talk at 3 o'clock. I'd be glad to stay as long as y'all want to if something I wrote or liked or didn't like troubles you. Secondly, I've been instructed to instruct y'all to fill out the online instructor evaluations, which I understand will occur sometime this week, I think. I don't know anything about how that happens, except I was told to tell you to please do it. So, let's get into it. Legal descriptions, chapter 16. I want to mention first, and we'll mention again and again as we talk about legal descriptions, the importance of surveyors and using surveyors and getting a survey in every deal, and the incredible number of things that can go wrong if you don't get a surveyor. And let me just say now, to make sure that you understand conceptually, you know, we've looked at some deeds, and those deeds had legal descriptions in them. But I want to be sure you're aware that legal descriptions describe a piece of land, period. Maybe there's a building on there, maybe there isn't. Maybe there's a half a building on there. You think you're buying a 4-story office building, and maybe 10 feet of it's on the other guy's property. So you don't really have a clue. We're going to see what legal descriptions do and how they set boundaries, but you don't see those boundaries. They're not on the ground. They're not painted lines like on a road. So the only way you're going to know if you're getting what you think you're buying in a certain legal description in terms of improvements, or even in terms of vacant land, is to get a survey and let the surveyor show you, and then you go out there with a survey and you take a look, and is this what I'm getting? Is this what I thought I was getting? Is 10 feet of my neighbor's building on my property, which the surveyor will show you? Or even worse, is 10 feet of the building you think you're buying on somebody else's property? Maybe not worse, both bad. Both real bad news. So, a legal description. A legal description is a description of a parcel of land that will be accepted by the courts, that is complete enough to locate and identify the premises. That's the definition from the book. Understand that the legal description is going to show you the physical dimensions of a piece of property in the several different ways we're going to talk about. One or more of the several different ways. And I'm going to draw some pictures in a minute, but the fact that it creates the dimensions, that creates boundaries. Once you know the description of your parcel and where the lines are and where they go, then that tells you the boundaries. But you don't see these boundaries on the land against. The test of whether one more thing, understand that a legal description has to close. And what that means is this. In one type of legal description, we talk about a point of beginning. And what that really means is the legal description has to come back to that same point of beginning. But what we're saying is, anytime you draw any kind of parcel, whether it's rectangle, square, triangle, whatever, it's got to close. It can't be a U or a V. It's got to be something closed. Circle maybe, but it's got to close. So that it has complete boundaries all the way around it. And when legal descriptions get screwed up, they don't close. And you end up with something like a U that come close, but they don't come back together. And that's a huge problem. So, the test has always been by the courts of whether a legal description is valid or not is, and this just shows you again the importance of a surveyor. Can a surveyor locate exactly the property from your legal description? If he can't, your legal description fails, and then your deed fails, and your title fails, and you're screwed. But that's what the courts are going to look to when we test these legals. Are they any good or not? Is can a surveyor, based upon that legal, can he go out, find all the boundaries and dimensions, and can he draw a picture of it? If he can't, it's not an adequate legal description. All right. Morning. And forgive me, I forgot to get the roll going. Mario, would you start the roll, please? Okay. We're going to talk about 3 types of legal descriptions. There are 3 different ways to describe a parcel. You can't always use all 3 of them, but sometimes you can. The first 2 you're going to hear about, you can always use. The third one is a sometimes. Now, the first one is called meets and bounds. Meets, M-E-T-E-S, and bounds. Now that's a method describing land. Here's the definition, and then we're going to walk through one. Here's the definition is a method of describing land by specifying the exterior boundaries, okay, using compass directions. Going around the compass. And maybe using monuments or landmarks. And the directions are going to change. And they're going to give you the linear distance, meaning how long a line it is, between points. So what this really boils down to is a series of angles and distances. Now let's talk one through one. And a couple of buzzwords that you're going to use are, we're going to have a point of beginning or a point of commencement. And then each time we move around, we're going to have a call. It's called a call. Meaning, go 120 feet east. That's a call. Okay, let's draw one. Talk it through. You got a piece of land. Let's call this the point of beginning. Got to start somewhere. Point of beginning of our parcel is here. Now, and you always got to know where north is. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be straight up on your survey. But sometimes, like the one we're going to look at in a little while, it's not. Diagonal. But you got to know where north is. to do these calls. Now, you gotta get to the point of beginning. So you're gonna start at a point of commencement. Point of commencement could be the southeast corner of the Statue of Liberty. It ain't gonna move, it's gonna be there. More often, it's gonna be something like let's see, the southeast corner of the intersection of University Drive and Southwest 30th Street. What's this road you come in from University? 30th Street, I think it is. Main drag across the north side here. That's going to be a point of commencement, and that's something a surveyor can find. And if you go out there to that corner, you're probably going to find some sort of a surveyor's monument. Going to be, if it's asphalt, it's going to look like a beer bottle cap with a nail in it. Going to have a surveyor's name on it, a number. Might be an iron pipe. Might be something. There's going to be something there. Now, and in the old days, it was the rock at the east end of Crooked Creek, you know. Hopefully that was going to stay put. But now we use things like the southeast corner of the intersection of two roads, because the roads have certain rights of way, and the surveyor could go find that thing. And it's going to say, go, let's say we were describing a piece, hell, let's say we're describing this building. Go east from that point of commencement, east, sometimes, and the materials quarrel on this a little bit, I differ with them a bit. Maybe it'll be east 1 degree south. Maybe it'll be this. Maybe it'll be east 10 degrees south. But travel somehow, and in this case would be along what we just talked about, along the south right-of-way line of Southwest 30th Street, if that's what this thing is out front here, that we all come in on. Travel east along the south right-of-way line of Southwest 30th Street. It's 2,000 feet to the point of beginning. Then you get to the point of beginning of a parcel. And now we're going to track around it. Let's say it's not just this building, but the whole parcel that would surround this building with a parking lot out front and a courtyard out back or something. As if this were a parcel of land with your classroom building here in the middle of it. So, it would then be continue, okay, to the point of beginning. The point of beginning of this parcel. Continue east along the south right-of-way line of Southwest 30th Street, 200 feet to a point. And at all these points, there's going to be a piece of rebar. There's going to be a concrete thing hammered down into the ground. There's going to be something that the surveyor put there. And he's going to say, continue east along the south right-of-way line of 30th Street, 200 feet, to a concrete monument with the McLaughlin Engineering label on it, okay? To a point. Well, we've just got the north boundary now of this parcel. It's going to say thence south. And he may say 1 degree east, or maybe 1 degree west, meaning is this line due south, or is it a little bit to the west, or a little bit to the east? He's not going to have a right-of-way line anymore here on campus, right? Got some more campus there. So he's no longer continuing along the road, so he's just going to go, say, go south, 1 degree west, 300 feet to a point. Going to have another corner. That point, he's probably going to say, with a piece of rebar and a yellow flag on it or something. That's the point. Same thing. Then west. Probably going to be 200 feet, assuming we've got some sort of a rectangular type parcel. So it's probably going to have the same boundary, same size boundary if we're going to have a rectangle. Maybe not. Maybe this one's 220 feet. Maybe it isn't exactly a rectangle or a square. Because we said it was 300 feet down this side, so it definitely isn't a square. And maybe it's not a perfect rectangle, but it's going to be go west 220 feet to a point. Going to tell you what's there, a little monument of some type. And then, assuming this was bigger than this, then we're going to have to go back north. He's going to say go north 10 degrees east, meaning this way back to the point of beginning. That's a legal description. That's a meets and bounds legal description. It has to close. If when you go north 10 degrees east, 300 feet, whatever. If you do that and you don't get back to the point of beginning, something's wrong. Legal description didn't close, it's defective. You can describe anywhere in this country, you can describe a piece of land like that. Anywhere. I mean anywhere. Downtown, farm, anywhere. You just got to have some starting point. Yes, sir.
Is that what the yellow compass equipment that the surveyor's using? He's
Exactly.
like looking through it and he's like,
He's doing both things with that. That thing tells him angles,
right, and distance.
and remarkably, it tells him distances too. I've never quite figured out how it did that. This is all pre-GPS, you know, when I figured out all this stuff. Now, it's interesting.
It's
We'll
laser.
talk in a minute about,
It's
I do a lot of GPS. I bet you do too.
We do.
And
We use the same thing. It's a laser. The laser shoots out.
A laser line,
and
okay.
And
It feeds back and tells you the distance and the angle from a compass, yeah. Yes, sir.
So, what happens when there's a problem?
Courts may have to straighten it out, may have some litigation.
So,
It may create a boundary dispute with somebody else. That's what we're talking about.
okay.
This set the boundaries of this parcel. Now, here it doesn't make any damn difference whatsoever because it's all Nova here and it's all Nova over there, so we're not going to get in a fight over this. But I'm talking about neighbors,
Yeah.
real neighbors. If this was the northeast corner of this campus, now then we got a street.
Mhm.
But if we had a neighbor, if that dolphin training facility is owned by the Dolphins, then we got a boundary with that somewhere. Nova has a boundary with that. I don't know who owns that. But at some point, maybe, and this place may be so damn big, that you got roads all around it, in which case you've got a huge block surrounded by roads, maybe you have no neighbors. You still have boundaries with the roads, but 9 times out of 10, you got a neighbor. And that's where these things come into play. If the neighbor's parcel described his, and instead of this line being due south like this, and his description, his comes down like this, and he thinks his corner is here,
Yeah.
and you think your corner is here, you got a problem. You're going to have a boundary dispute. We'll talk about those in a minute.
Okay.
But then you've got overlapping descriptions, and surveyors hopefully can get them straightened out and resolved, and the parties can give each other deeds if they have to get it all figured out, and if it doesn't work out, they go to court and say, Your Honor, you figure this out for us.
Okay, and then one more question. When you buy, let's say, 2 parcels like that, and you join them together to make one property,
Uh-huh.
what happens is the legal description, does it stay the same, where you still have, you'll have 6 corners, you have 6 points, or would you just take out the middle parts?
Yeah, I mean, it no longer becomes relevant if you never intend to divide them again.
Okay.
It's not just, yeah, you might have, and you would have probably, in a future legal description, the next surveyor would totally ignore this.
Okay.
And he would say, go 400 feet east
Mhm.
to this corner,
Okay.
you know, and then it's over.
Okay.
But that's if we haven't platted the property, which we're gonna talk about later.
Okay.
This is what we call acreage.
Mm.
And we're gonna talk about plats as our third type of description in a little while, where you make a map and record it. And then forevermore, this might be called lot 1 and this might be called lot 2.
Okay.
We're not there yet.
Yeah, okay, it's right there.
We're in acreage, but that doesn't mean it's not improved.
No, I understand.
Shopping centers, a lot of shopping centers are described this way. I guarantee you Galleria shopping center is not lots 1 and 2 of Coral Ridge, you know? It's and all this stuff. You can fix this, simplify this by platting the property, which we'll talk about last.
Okay.
And then forevermore, then you won't ever have to describe this anymore as it can be lot 2 forever
Okay.
on a plat. If you want, we'll talk about what that means. But if you haven't done that, this is one of the 2 ways of finding any piece of property anywhere. And you may not be traveling along the south right-of-way line of a road. You may just plain old pick a point on you could pick that same point. But you know how this 30th Street kind of changed? You may not do that at all. You may say, take it to the same point of commencement, and rather than follow the right-of-way line, which way do we curve? We kind of curve south a little bit. You may just say simply, if that point of commencement is up here, go south 2,000 feet. Let's see, go east 10 degrees south. It comes straight here to that point of beginning. You may not have a line to travel along. If you're out in the middle of nowhere, you don't. The reason you can travel along these right-of-way lines is because these are all mapped and platted. So they're there. Surveyors can find them. You can go look at maps of them. You can see how to get here along the south right-of-way line of that road, but not necessarily. It may not be anything. You start at a point, a fixed point that everybody can find and knows exists and will never go away. And sometimes that's a natural monument, but more and more these days it's not. More and more it's an artificially created but very permanent something. And you go to your point of beginning of your description. That's how to get to me. And then you go around your sides by meets and bounds, and you have created a parcel with boundaries, and you've got a legal description. And what that means is, when a surveyor sees that legal description, I mean, that whole, what I'm talking about is that's going to be a narrative paragraph. It's going to say all this crap I said here. Go here, go here, go here, go here, to these degrees, these feet, these, that's what's going to be in the legal description part of your deed. All that stuff. And what that means is, the surveyor, a surveyor, can take that legal description, and he can go out there, he can draw a picture of your property, and he can go out and locate it, and put flags on these corners, if there aren't already rebar stakes. If he's creating he can create a brand new legal description for you, on a piece in the middle of a guy's farm.
Yeah.
And he can put flags on these corners, and then you can put fences along those lines if you want, and you got yourself a fenced parcel of land. But you're not going to see these lines. He's going to draw them on a piece of paper. But maybe, as Chad was talking about, maybe you can have a guy stand here on this corner, and a guy stand here on this corner, and hopefully you can see each other. And let's line up a fence on that line. Or maybe you shoot a laser beam or something, you know. And you fence it in the middle of nowhere. You got yourself a parcel. That's the legal description. Okay, let me see if I have any other comments or two that I want to mention on this. We're talking about angles and distances The book tells you, but I don't think this is correct, that you always use north and south and then go east. I see surveyors doing it. Just the point is, you take one direction, and if you're going due east, that's cool. And if your line's a little bit north, you go a little bit north of it. Or your line, how many degrees south of it, you go south of it. And these degrees, by the way, are not going to be 1 degree. They're going to be 1 degree, 23 minutes, minutes and 42 seconds. I mean, it's very precise thing. Okay, that's called a meets and bounds legal description. Secondly, that's one way to describe land. Secondly is something called the rectangular survey system. This is a dinosaur, but it works. Well over 200 years ago, Congress said we need a government survey of the whole country, and hired teams of surveyors, you know, Lewis and Clark type guys, to go out in the middle of nowhere and survey the whole damn country, including Florida, and they did. And we still use legal descriptions based on that survey today.
What was it called again?
I'm sorry?
What was it called again? The rectangle?
Well, it's called the government survey,
Okay.
but this type of a legal description is called rectangular survey, based on the rectangular survey. Now, here's what this means. I'm not sure whether, I'm going to try to draw this in the middle and see if the camera can pick this up. But there are a couple of things I'm going to want you to look at in your textbook as a part of this part of the description. And they are, of course, in this chapter. And just for a moment, go ahead and turn in your textbook, if you brought it with you, I hope you did, to page 389. And I'll show you how some of this stuff works. And let me have this with you too, make sure that I'm not depicting anything differently than what you're looking at. Okay, here's what these guys did. They started somewhere with a fixed line, kind of like the equator. But I don't know where the line is. And I don't need to know, and you don't need to know. But they started with a line somewhere. East-west, across the whole country. And then they said, let's draw, that's a baseline. Candidly, don't know where it is. Doesn't matter. They said that that's, of course, that's 0. And let's draw a line every 6 miles, north and south. Okay? Now let's call this a township. And this is 6 miles from here to here. And 6 miles from here to here. Now, all of this is called Township 1 North. Okay? All of this is called Township 1 South. 6 miles. Okay. Now, next, let's put another line somewhere. I don't know where it is. Doesn't matter. But it'll be 0. And let's draw line like this. Now let's call these things ranges. Okay? And they're also 6 miles.
Always 6 miles?
I'm sorry?
Always 6 miles?
Yeah, they're always 6 miles. So this obviously is going to be range from this line, okay? Everything in this line is going to be range 1 east. Everything over here is going to be range 1 west. Okay? So, we've now got squares all over the country. Pretty obvious. They ought to be 6 miles on each side. Okay? Now, any one of these squares, look at the figure at the bottom of page, what did we say, 389? That is one of these squares. That's the square. Okay? Now, to get to that square, how do we describe that square? Well, it's township 1 south, right? And it's range 1 west, right? That's that square. 6 miles around, anywhere in the country. Range 42 west, range 87 west, 6 miles, 6 miles, 6 miles. You then got this box. And that box has 36 little 1 square mile sections. See them? Each one of those sections is a square mile. Okay? So we've now gotten to a section. So now, here's a legal description. Let's take section 6. Got it? Upper left-hand corner, number 6. Section 6. Now let's talk about section 6 now. Over here now, we're going to draw section 6. And one more time, what's its legal description? Its legal description is section 6 of township 1 south, range 1 west. Okay? That's that little box up there. And we know that it's a mile on all sides. Okay.
I'm assuming that the way they're numbered is always the same.
Every time. Weird as hell.
It's weird, yeah.
You spend years trying to figure it out. So you just keep looking back at the chart. You don't learn this. You just go, you know, it would drive you crazy. Of course, you would start in the upper left, and then you come back and do 1 through 6, and then go down. No, they just didn't do it that way. But this was 200 and some years ago. But they did every section of the whole country exactly this way. So, knowing that, farmer owns a farm that's a square mile. It's called a section. There's his legal description. That's a farm. That's a legal description, period. A surveyor can go out and find that. But that's half of it. Now we got ourselves a square mile. So how many guys you know that own a square mile? That's a hell of a lot of land. Okay, so, but remember, we've gone through all this to find out what section is. And now, let's go to the next page. Lower left of 390, and see what happens to a section. Because people often, some guys own 100 sections. Most people don't own a whole section. So let's start dividing this thing up. A section, square mile, is 640 acres. It just is. There's 640 acres in a section, a mile by a mile, by a mile by a mile. So, how are we going to talk about a legal description of a guy who owns this place? About the west half of section 6. And how many acres is it? 320 acres. How about the guy that owns this? How about the northwest quarter? Section 6, Township 1 South, Range 1 West. 160 acres, right? How about the guy that owns this? 40 acres, right? The northwest quarter of the northwest quarter. Section 6, Township Range 1 West. 40 acres, still a pretty damn big piece of land we're talking about. See how these breakdowns are? You can follow each one of these. The ones they give you there, what are they? I think I got describing the gray one maybe? I don't know. In any event. And these get, I mean, you can see that, let's see, the smallest ones they give you here is 20 acres. Hell, that's probably bigger than Holiday Park. You know, I mean, still a lot of land. So you get down into a guy's little 1 acre farm, you can describe it this way. Now, and it's not always whole pieces. How about this piece right here? It could easily be, forget your drawing here, because this is all nice squares. Nice little boxes that all happen to fit perfectly, but people don't buy that land that way. This could be the east 100 feet. The section 6. Long, skinny, 100-foot strip, a mile long, right? Mile long, 100 feet wide, east 100 feet. How about this guy's little piece? How about the north 100 feet of what? Of the east 100 feet, right? Of section 6. But it gets weirder when it's 100 feet by 100 feet here. And it's going to get a little harder to get there, you know? But you can get there. You can do it. You can go quarter, 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 quarter. We've gotten into this quarter thing here. And now we may have a little piece down here. Well, it's nice if it's on the boundary, but maybe it's not. So maybe we got to say, we got to draw a line down here and call this the west 200 feet, and come down and say the south 100 of the north 300 of the west 200 of the But you get there. Anywhere in the country. You can always get there this way. Now this is a little bit like GPS, but it's not. And they didn't have GPS, obviously. Pretty damn obviously. You probably never have done this, unless you're a GPS freak like I am for boating reasons, or a pilot or whatever. You look at your cell phone and it'll tell you exactly where you are right now. Such and such a degrees north, such and such a degrees east or west. It'll give you an exact point. with GPS, following a thing like this, you get to an exact point. And you could describe a parcel with 4 GPS coordinates of the 4 corners. It's the same idea, except they did this before we had GPS. The GPS, you know, how far north or south, hell, I think it's of the equator, and how far east or west of this meridian, prime meridian, something like that. The point is, same idea as GPS. How far north or south of a certain line, how far east or west, east and west of a certain line, they get you to a point. This is just done a little differently, the way they did it in the old days. Started with big old hunks and 6-mile strips, and then put 36 little 1-mile boxes inside each one. And then you take one of them and start dividing it up into pieces. Okay, that is called a legal description based on the rectangular survey. Both of the two we've talked about, you can locate any property anywhere in the United States. Maybe not Alaska, I don't know about Hawaii, but continental US. And certainly in Florida. Now, there is a third type of legal description. And in urban areas, cities, developed counties, you're going to find that your legal descriptions are based on a recorded plat, P-L-A-T. A plat, the material describes, is a map which shows lots and blocks and streets. It says generally drawn from a survey. Now, let me tell you that the one in the book is horrible. That ain't what they look like. I mean, maybe there is one somewhere that looks like that, but that ain't what most of them look like. I'm going to draw you one. And tell you what's going on with it and how you get there, because most of the land that you're going to deal with in developed eastern Broward County is based on a plat. It's already been platted. It's the verb, to plat it, or it's called a plat. A plat is simply a big old piece of paper. Huge. Probably this big. Survey, you know, blue looks like engineering drawings, surveyor drawings, stuff like that. On here is a picture of a piece of land. And on it are some streets. Okay? Those are all streets. And here, I'll make this real simplified, but these are a lot bigger than this. We're going to call this Block A. We're going to call this Block B. And in Block A, we have lots 1, 2, 3, and 4. And in Block B, we have lots 1, 2. These don't have to be the same size, by the way. Usually they are, but they don't have to be. Sometimes you got double lots. Now, that's on this whole piece of paper. Over here is going to be a legal description of one of these two types. Of this whole parcel of land here, okay? Because this whole parcel is what you're platting. And it's going to either say go to the corners, or it's going to say the north half and the east half of the west end's 300, One of these two types of legal descriptions is going to be over here. Going to have a legal description. Okay? And what's going to happen is, by the way, the thing's going to have a name. Happy Homes. Or Happy Acres. Because these could be big. These could be 1 acre lots. But they might be little tiny crap like in Margate, you know, with little 50 by 40 foot lots where the houses are all like this. But you're going to know that from the legal description, and the surveyor is going to tell you how big these lots are. You're going to see on the dimensions of these things. You may see 300 feet on this one, because that was a biggie, and only 200 feet on this one. That's fine. It is what it is. But there's going to be this legal description. And there's going to be something on it. And the material don't tell you this, and you don't have to learn this, but I want you to know what these things look like. And if I could have found one, usually they're old, and they're hard to get a copy of. There's going to be something called a dedication. And the owner of the property is going to say, I own this piece of property. I'm platting it. It's called Happy Acres. And I hereby dedicate all of the streets shown on the plat to the public. The streets didn't exist before this. This was a naked piece of land. You got to put streets in. So he says, I hereby dedicate to the public all the streets shown on the plat. I dedicate to the public all the utility easements, because he's going to put a utility easement across here, for them to bury power lines, water lines, stuff like that. He says, I dedicate the streets. I dedicate all the utilities to the public, and I'm recording Happy Acres in plat book something at page something. We'll come back to that in a minute. And then a bunch of governmental entities are going to sign this everywhere. All over this damn thing is going to be, I'm the county engineer, I approve it. I'm the city engineer, I'm happy with it. The utilities are good. Everybody signs off. County attorney, city attorney, everybody all signs all over this damn thing. Says, I approve, this is all cool, let's do it. So the last thing that's going to happen right here is going to be an acceptance. And the mayor of the county or the city is going to sign it and say, we accept the dedication of all the streets and utilities, and we accept the plat, and we agree, go ahead and plat. Now, this process takes at least a year to get through all the different people who have to rubber stamp this thing and approve it, to go before the commission 3 times. But once everybody's approved it, then this whole map can be recorded. We're going to talk about recording, of course, later, next chapter, or soon, today anyway, in a plat book. A plat book number 42 at page 7. Now, every county has a plat book, so you would say in plat book 42, page 7 of the public records of Broward County, Florida. So let's talk about a legal description going forward from here now. This thing has been recorded. Everybody can go look at it. In this legal description, the surveyor has given you a point of commencement somewhere, and then gone around it, or he's given you a quarter, whatever. He's told you how to find this thing. And the surveyor has gone out there too. He's put little stakes in the ground here, little rebars. Where it's paved, he puts a nail and a cap. Where it's just land, maybe he puts a piece of rebar, you know, a piece of metal stake. And all these things are staked out there. Now, let's talk about, you want to buy this, right there. So what's your legal description? Your legal description, I want to buy this piece on this street, probably wouldn't have a street here. See, usually what we would do would be, we would have houses facing both ways. You know what I'm saying? You usually don't have a street in the front and the back. My point being, candidly, normally, you'd have lots like that, because you only front on one and you got a neighbor in the backyard, you know. But for this one we talked about, what's your legal description going forward now? Your legal description is Lot 3, Block B of Happy Acres, according to the plat thereof, recorded in Plat Book 42 at page 7 of the Public Records of Broward County, Florida. That's it. No more of this BS. You've already done that. Forevermore, this is Lot 3, Block B. That's a sufficient legal description now that you have a recorded plat. Surveyor can go out there and find it. It's the surveyor that drew this thing. But another surveyor can find it too. He can go look at that recorded plat map, and based on these points of references and the distances and all this stuff and the size of the streets and all that, even if somebody knocks down these stakes or these caps in the road go away, surveyor can find Lot 3. Can stake the corners for you so that you can measure your setbacks and build a house if you want. That's a legal description of a piece of land now. That's called a legal description based on a plat or a map. But here in Florida we call them plats. One more weirdo. In the old days, we didn't have a Broward County. You're going to see plats in Broward and downtown Fort Lauderdale that say, according to the plat thereof, in plat book, here's a biggie. According to the plat of Progresso, most of downtown Fort Lauderdale, you don't need to know this, recorded in Plat Book 1, page 18 of the Public Records of Dade County, Florida. Because we didn't used to have a Broward County. We used to have a Palm Beach County and a Dade County. They came together right through the middle of our county here. Then later they decided, let's have a Broward. But people were already recording plats. So in the northern part of the county, in the northern part of Broward County, we have some plats recorded in the Palm Beach Public Records, located in Broward. It's cool. Just got to go to the Palm Beach records to find a copy of the plat. But it's going to be in a legal description, and if you look at any of the documents we talked about before, you're going to see. The documents that I showed you attached to that search, that was a plat. That was an old plat. I think maybe one of them was a Dade County plat. But our old legal descriptions are based on Dade County plats or Palm Beach plats, and our more recent ones are based on Broward County plats, because Broward has a younger history. But plat book and page, lots and blocks. Now, it can be replatted. Everybody doesn't like this. You can ask the government to vacate this plat. If you never sold, filled a bunch of lots, that ain't going to be easy anymore. But if you still owned all this and got this recorded, lots wouldn't sell, bad idea. Well, let's do it again. Let's do it in smaller lots this time, you know. Let's go through another year and another $100,000 of expense of attorneys and engineers and surveyors and politicians and lobbyists and all that. You can replat it too, if you want. But until land is replatted, that plat is there forever. Yes, Jim?
So you had mentioned that the plats are based on either the meets and bounds or the rectangular survey system
To get to the
plat.
To get to the whole piece.
In Florida, which is used more regularly, the meets and bounds or the rectangular survey system? Which have you seen? Have you seen the?
Oh, you see both. You see them all the time. And you know, that's a really good question. I don't know why.
You see both all the
Yeah,
time.
candidly, this is the way the surveyor wrote it up. Maybe because the last surveyor wrote it up and he used the same legal as he did for this piece, but to be honest with you, I see. The bigger the parcel, the more often you're going to see the rectangular survey. The smaller the parcel is going to be go to a corner and go around here, you know. Sometimes we're going to talk about eminent domain in a minute. Sometimes the government will want to widen this road by 5 feet. So you'll have a little parcel that's 5 feet wide that goes along here and 5 feet, that's clearly gonna be described this way. It's not gonna be a part of the quarter thing, you know. So as you get smaller and smaller, you're more likely to do this. As you get bigger and bigger, this is farms, and frankly, people do often use the west half of a section for a farm or something. It was 320 acres. But there are places of unplatted property in both of these cases that you'll find something just like this. I used to own a townhouse that was the east half. It had a party wall. It was a duplex townhouse. It had a party wall agreement with the other side of the duplex. And I was the east half of a 70-foot parcel, and the other guy was the west half of a 70-foot parcel. Described just like this to get there in the heart of Wilton Manors. It had never been platted. Just wasn't. You know, nobody had ever platted it. Nothing had ever been built there before either. I mean, so, you know, the developer went out and on a 70-foot parcel, built a townhouse with a block wall down the middle, two-story townhouses basically, but as a duplex. And the legal description was the east, and he owned a 70-foot parcel, and the legal description of mine was the east half, and the guy next to me was the west half. And we had a party wall agreement down the middle like we talked about. As you can see, maybe there are 3 ways to describe every parcel of land. Every parcel. There are always 2 ways. If it's platted, you could also do any of these silly things if you wanted to. You could describe this by coming down here and coming to here and making this a point of beginning and going around lot 1. You could do it that way. Or you could maybe do it this way. Maybe this is the west 100 feet of the south 100 feet of the na-na-na, of the na-na-na-na-na-na. They're still valid, but you don't have to do that anymore. It's got an awful lot simpler now. This is lot 1, block A. Why not just do that? Can't screw it up. You know, you got the legal description right. Everybody can go find it. But it's expensive to get there. But developers do it. The reason developers do it is because the cities and the counties won't give them a building permit to build a dozen houses unless they do it. They say, if you want to pull a permit on previously unplatted property, you got to plat it. You got to go through all this. You got to give me rights of way. You got to give me utility easements. You got to give me fees. That's the way it works. But then it's platted. But it's no easy row to hoe, but they make you do it. But they don't make a farmer do it in the middle of nowhere. But the governments will require you to plat land in order to build anything on it. Okay, now, that's the 2 or 3 ways to describe every piece of property. That's about legal descriptions. Now, the materials, want to go talk about boundary disputes. We're not even going to talk about it. That's what lawyers litigate. If you got a problem with a boundary and you and your neighbor can't work it out, then you're going to end up litigating it. And the materials tell you all the tests, and here's what we're going to rely on to see which legal description is valid, who wins, and all that. I don't care. I don't think you should care. Get a surveyor before you close and buy a piece of property. Hire him to draw a survey. Take a look at it. See what it tells you. See if it shows you got any problems. Now, the 2 lessons I want to say before we leave it is get a surveyor, we just talked about, and use the legal description he gives you on the survey in your documents. He knows what he's doing. Don't try to be cute. He's certified it to you, he's guaranteed it to you, he's legally responsible if it's wrong, use it. Now,
Saying not take a golf rangefinder.
say it again?
Don't take out your golf rangefinder and try to do it yourself.
No, not a good thing, not a good thing. Now, did anybody print the survey that I sent you as a sample? Can you see it?
Yes.
Can you really?
Yeah.
I can't read it anymore. I used to be able to. This survey is the size of this table. And here's a scanned, reduced copy. If you like, if you think you can see it well enough, we'll talk it through. If you prefer, we can pull down the screen and probably can project this thing up there on the screen and look at it, but if you can read it, let's just do it from paper. Cool? Can you read enough of it?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Here's what's going on. This is a survey of a piece of property on US 1 in the Keys. In Tavernier. Anybody know the Keys? Just north of Almirada, town of
I was just there
Tavernier?
this morning.
Okay. The building, basically, that we're interested in is this thing about in the middle on the left. There's a box, and in the middle of it, it says 1-story something. I can't read it.
One story split level.
Probably says CBS building or something
Split
like
level
that.
commercial building.
All right, cool. That's the building. That's what this deal was about, this building. So in order to have a survey of that building and the land it sits on, this is what you got. Now, look at that north arrow and see how it's going diagonally here. Well, that's because the Keys, at this point, pretty much run northeast to southwest. You know, Key Largo starts out south. By the middle of the Keys, you're turning diagonally. By the time you get down the Big Pine heading to Key West, you're going east-west. Because the Keys do this. So, the point is, if you wanted to look at this thing with north straight up, like you usually do, you gotta do what Chad just did. You gotta turn it sideways. But you can't read it that way. So you look at it this way, and you realize, that's Federal Highway on the left, US 1, see? US 1, northbound, US 1, southbound. And just realize that that road is going northeast to southwest. Now, here's something real interesting going on in the survey. You got 3 different plats all butting up against each other here. You got 3 of these. Because next door, somebody else did a different plat called Happy Farms. And they butt up against each other here. And there's another one down here shaped like this. And this is Happy whatever. Bunch of different plats, different names, recorded at different times. They're adjacent to each other. So look what's going on this. Right under your north arrow is a plat called Tavernier Heights. Plat book what? Plat book 1 and so on. Over to the right is a plat called Singleton's Addition to Tavernier Cove. We're looking at the drawing now, not the writing yet. Lower right and bottom, we got a plat called Tavernier Cove. So we got 3 plats all butting up against each other here, which is normal. And each of them has got lots of them, like we talked about. So now, in the upper right, the surveyor is going to give us the legal description of this piece of property. And he's going to say, if I recall correctly, let's see, we're in Tavernier Cove now. He's going to say, what is that? Lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Plus the this is going to be of Tavernier Cove. So, Tavernier Cove is this plat on the bottom. See Sunrise Drive in Tavernier Cove. Sunrise Drive is going to be the southern boundary of our parcel. Our parcel on here is going to be this funny looking thing that's mostly a rectangle around the building, and then a few lots going off up to the right. Okay? It's hard to follow all these lines here, but that's what the parcel looks like. A rectangle, and then another smaller rectangle hooked on in the upper right-hand corner, and then a couple more going up the street here. So the surveyor is going to describe this parcel to us in the legal description. And he says, therefore, see lots, what are they? Lots 1, 2, and 3 start in the lower left corner of this parcel and are stacked up on top of each other, 1, 2, and 3. Got them? Lower left is a lot 1. Top of that is a lot 2. Top of that is a lot 3. Now, just to be nice and weird like that section drawing was, and whoever drew this plat draws lot 4 over next to it. But hell, it's as big as 1, 2, and 3. And next to it, he draws a big 5 and he draws a big 6. So, kind of the lower half of this box is lots 1, 2, and 3 going up this way, and big 4, big 5, big 6, right? Of Tavernier Cove, plat book, did. And he says, less the something feet of lots 1, 2, and 3. What does he say? What is that? Less the westerly 30 feet? What the hell does that say in the first line of the legal description? Less the westerly something feet of lots 1, 2, and 3. Because when they widened the highway, they took away the west so-and-so feet
Northwest
of lots 1, 2, and 3. When they platted this thing in the old days, probably a little one-lane road each way. They platted right out to US 1 when it was one lane each way and didn't have a median. And the road gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And pretty soon they've taken away less the whatever it is feet of lots 1, 2, and 3. So that's part of what you got here. Then he's going to say, together with, and I apologize, I just can't read this anymore, but together with lots 6 and 7, but forget this for a moment, because 6 and 7 are across the street here. What's the name of the street on the north side? North Sunrise Drive, right? We had a Sunrise Drive along the south side, right? The street on the north side, if you follow it all the way up to the upper right-hand corner, you see it's named North Sunrise Drive, curving down on the north side of this building here. He says, together with lots 6 and 7, but forget those are across the street. Those are big 6 and 7 you're seeing up on the top here. They're a parking lot. There's no building on those. They happen to be a part of this deal. But the point is, together with that 6 and 7 up there, and then he gets into, what, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, and 43. This time, it's not Tavernier Cove anymore. It's of the plat of Singleton's addition to Tavernier Cove that we saw in the upper right-hand corner. That's the northern part of the building. And the parking lot extending out to the east. So let's look at the northern half of our building. We see there we got, upper left, 41, 42, and 43. Next to that, skinny little lot 40, right in the middle of the building. Next to that, a 39, a 38, and a 37 heading east. And then the legal description is going to get weird with meets and bounds. And we could follow that through if we could read it. But here's what's going on in the meets and bounds. The meets and bounds are going to be part of lots 36 and 35 heading east, part lots. So the only way to describe the partial lots, we've got a platted lot, but we can still use a meets and bounds portion of a platted lot to carve out kind of the northwest half of those two lots. That's the legal description of this building. That's what goes with this building. So, you got a contract to buy this building. Contract's got a legal description. You hand the legal description to the surveyor. Say, draw me a survey. Show me, am I getting what I think I'm getting? I think I'm buying that building. Surveyor's going to take that legal description. He's going to draw you a picture of it, just like this, with that legal description on there that you think is going to be in your deed because it was in your contract, and when we get to our closing, it's going to be in your deed. What am I going to get here? And show me how many parking spaces are there right now, because the government requires certain parking spaces. See the parking spaces striped in there? See the boundaries, and if you get really close on this, we move this up. You see he's going to show you fences and walls, and he's going to show you like between lots in the lower right hand corner, between lots 6 and 7, there's a wall. That wall better be in the right spot. If the wall's over onto the guy on lot 7, then you don't own the wall. If you're buying lot 6. You get out there, you look at a wall, hey, I'm probably buying everything in the wall. Maybe, maybe not. He's going to show you where the property line is as it relates to that wall. Or, weirder still, you own another 5 feet of land beyond the wall. Then you got to worry about, but the neighbor's claiming that 5 feet of land. And whose wall is it? And there's a gazillion things on here that I could show you if we blew this thing up. But here's what you're going to do with this survey once you get it. You're going to take it out there and you're going to walk the property and see what it tells you before you close, before you buy it. So if there are any problems, you can work it out. Okay?
Who gets to decide the size of the lots? Because like you said, some are skinny, some are big.
Well, whoever did this plat 50 years ago drew them that way.
So is it the owner or the surveyor?
Well, the owner told the surveyor what to do.
How to divide the lots.
This owner who did this dedication hired a surveyor and says, I want to plat this lot. And the surveyor says, great. What size would you like me to make the lots? So the owner decided what he wanted, what he kind of checked, what he thought his sales plan was going to be.
Right.
And got the surveyor to put them on there that way. Now you can't, it's not totally carte blanche. There are minimum lot size regulations and county building regs and all, so you can't, you can't put a postage stamp one. But I mean, the configuration of this, yeah, an owner decided what he wanted his piece of land to look like on a plat. Had to be okay with the government too, because it had to be approved by the county engineer and the city attorney and the mayor and the commissioners and all these guys, and they vote. You go to a city commission meeting, they'll approve a few plats that have been through about a year of junk to get to them. That's the final event, then the mayor signs it and it gets recorded. And if some city commissioner says, I think lot 40 looks stupid on this plat, I'm not voting for it. Well, if 3 of them agree with him, your plat's not approved. Now, notice of course, every lot is on a public street. Otherwise, no access. And he probably put in these streets when he did the plat. I'm willing to bet you the same developer owned a section down there, and he did all these plats. Different times, different names, and he mapped all this stuff out the way he wanted. Because, let me tell you what's going on there. This is all commercial frontage on US 1. You know what US 1 looks like in the Keys? Couldn't be honkier. you know, shops, restaurants, motels, bars. But starting with about 4 or 5 lots into the east are single-family houses. Now, these are people's homes. You go east on Sunrise Drive here, and I told you, worrying about that wall between lot 6 and 7 along Sunrise Drive on the south side, okay? Your parking lot on this parcel, you got paved parking, see the diagonal lines for parking spaces on lot 6. And you got a guy living in a single-family house on lot 7. Now let me tell you what this deal was. This was the Florida Keys Electric Co-op's office building. And they sold it to my client, who did developments for the government and had a contract to move Homeland Security's offices from elsewhere on the island to this building. And you know, in the Keys, they pick up a lot of Cuban migrants under the wet foot, dry foot thing, and some of them they put in prison for a while and then they send them back. Some of them, you know, with the dry foot, they get to stay. But the plan was, we're going to build a big old fence around this. We're going to have customs and immigration agents, and we're going to have border patrol, and we're going to have Coast Guard, and we're going to have all these people in this office building. And we're going to build a wall around this thing with barbed wire all around it because we're going to have a bunch of prisoners in there. And the neighbors went ape. And they took it to the county commission. The county commission shut the whole thing down. Said, I don't care you're the federal government. You're not building that in our city. We don't want prisoners. We don't want rapists and murderers like Donald Trump calls them here, even for 10 minutes. So no, you're not building it. And yeah, the people all come to the county commission meeting and they scream and yell and the commissioners vote no and the deal's dead and it's off. So my client now owns this building, this empty dump of an office building that used to be the electric co-op's office, because they moved across the highway and they built this big gorgeous new complex, and this is their crappy old office where you used to pay your utility bill, you used to pay your electric bill with a drive-through. So he's got to figure out what to do with it. So this is cool. He goes down the street and goes to the Baptist hospital, says, you guys could use some more offices. And they say, yeah, we could use kind of a drive-in medical clinic. Let's do that. So he sells it to the Baptist hospital, who's putting a walk-in medical clinic here. The neighbors love that. Cool. I can walk next door and get my flu shot, you know? So that's all wonderful. None of this relates to anything but to try to make this into a real-world survey. That's what this is all about. So my guy bought it from the electric co-op. It had been their old building. But my guy gets a contract with a legal description in it. He didn't know what it is. Surveyor, draw us up this picture. Show me what I'm buying here. And, you know, then tries to get permits to develop it, etc. That's the story of the history of this piece of property. That's a little bit of the history. That's 2 years of the history of this piece of property. Yes, sir?
What if the developer puts in, commissions a survey to put the set of lots in a specific way?
Yeah, lots of blocks?
Yeah, and the commission approves it.
Okay.
And he wants to change it after.
It gets recorded. Okay, it's recorded.
Mm-hmm.
The only way to change it is to go back to the commission and say, I'd like to abandon my plat, and I'd like to kill it. They have to get their approval.
Okay.
That's if you still own all the land. If you sold 2 of these lots, it ain't up to you anymore. Once the developer has sold 1 lot, and some guy owns lot 4, well, the developer ain't going in there to change the plat anymore. If you still own all of the land, you can replat it again and again, as long as you still own it. But once you deed it out pursuant to the plat, maybe you can get that guy to agree. Maybe you can buy his lot back, you know. But you got to own all the land in order to replat it. When you record a new plat, That's called a replat. When you record a replat, that abandons the old plat. That kills the old plat. But you can only do it if you still own all the land. One of the gazillion requirements that I've mentioned that go into this is a title certification from a lawyer guaranteeing that you own every inch of land on that piece of property. So if you deeded out lot 4, you couldn't get a title certification, you still own all the land, so you could replat. Another question?
Yeah, so let's say in the sales contract that the legal description is wrong or is completely off from what the county has. Let's say if he put in a fraudulent or a fake legal description and the contract was closed because he didn't do his due diligence, does it go back to the courts to figure out, you know, because let's say.
Well, let's back up a minute. You're going to work this out before you have a closing.
Okay, so no matter what, you're gonna have you're gonna identify the piece of property if it's legal or not. You can't sell a fake piece of property.
Well, Alex, it depends on what we're talking about. My point is, you don't buy it, have a closing, and then find out later you got a problem.
Okay, yeah.
You find out beforehand, and you say to the seller, "I'm not closing.
Of course.
Your legal description's no good. Give me my deposit back, or fix it, or go get a deed from this guy that has this little corner here because your legal description was cleared out." Well, once you get a deed from him, then you got good title, and then your legal description works, and that'll close. It just depends on what we're talking about.
Okay.
There are a gazillion things that could be wrong, and there's probably a solution to every one of them.
Mm-hmm.
The important thing is, you as a buyer make the seller do it before the closing. Well, it's his problem, and it's not yours. So, we're going to talk about the closing process and what the buyer does before the closing.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things is get a survey.
Mm-hmm.
Buyer's going to examine the title, and he's going to get a survey and have a lawyer look at the survey too, and maybe not with a house, but you know, with something sophisticated. A piece like this, hell yeah.
Yeah.
And whatever the problem is, you find out before closing and work it out and get it fixed, so that it's not your problem. That's what we're talking about.
Okay. That makes sense.
Okay, let's quit this and go to the next chapter. And I think there's some interesting concepts here. And what's a hoot? Is the name of the chapter is involuntary alienation. And we'll talk about that, but let me try to put that into context. You remember we had something called involuntary liens? Involuntary liens are mechanics liens and judgment liens and real estate taxes versus voluntary liens, where you sign a mortgage, you know, where you put a lien on your property. Well, now we got alienation. Alienation simply means transfer. Stupid word. Transfer means transferring title to land. Alienation. You can do it voluntarily. Well, that's what signing a deed is. You voluntarily decided to transfer the title. This chapter is about a weirdest group of unrelated concepts lumped together called involuntary alienation, which means your title gets transferred against your consent. It wasn't your idea. As weird as that sounds. But there are ways that can happen. What we're talking about is, what are the ways that somebody can take your piece of property away from you? Strange concept, because one of them we're going to talk about is death. Well, that sucks. But your property is going to transfer. It wasn't your idea.
Roadways too?
I'm sorry?
Like roadways, like highways?
That's one. All the ones we're going to talk about. What we're talking about first is adverse possession. Again, remember, these things have nothing to do with each other, except they all happen to be in chapter 17, lumped into something called what can happen to you if you own a piece of property. How can you lose it? All right. The first way in the materials is called adverse possession. Andre, you teed this up one time earlier talking about squatters and stuff like that. Yeah, that's in this category. Adverse possession is about, here's the definition, acquisition of title to real property by means of wrongful occupancy over a period of time. In other words, you weren't supposed to be there, but you were for a period of time. Maybe you can end up being the owner. Adverse possession. Now, we're going to talk about specific Florida requirements in a minute. But generally, in order to understand adverse possession, and I'm not sure I can explain to you why we have it, but we do have it. Here's what's going on. There are a couple of buzzwords that I want you to be familiar with because I told you I want you to learn the vocabulary. You probably already understand the concept of statute of limitations. You've seen it plenty on TV for criminal law. You know, we can't prosecute Bill Cosby for rape anymore. Statute of limitations is already run. Too long. Statute of limitations in law is a certain period of time to bring an action. And if you wait too long, it's barred. Simply put. It's a period of time to do something or don't. And that's set by a statute. Again, it's easy to understand in the criminal context, but in our civil context, we have the same thing. If you're going to sue somebody for breach of contract, you have to sue within 4 years. That's a statute of limitations. If you wait longer than 4 years, you can't sue them anymore. That's one. Remember we talked about mechanics liens the other day. That guy who filed the mechanics lien, he had 1 year to file suit, or he was barred. That's a statute of limitations. It's a period of time by statute that says you must file your action. We're talking about civil actions here, not criminal, or lose it. Now there's a related concept called lashes, L-A-C-H-E-S.